الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. Respected brothers and sisters, it is my great honor to be here celebrating with you all these important Islamic holidays. The last time I was here was probably over 5 years ago, I believe. So it's great to come and visit this wonderful community, mashallah. The month of Dhul Hijjah is a month of many important events. Many important Islamic events are celebrated during the holy month of Dhul Hijjah. And one of the important events that is celebrated during this holy month is the birth of Imam Ali al-Hadi alayhi salam. Now, although there is a hadith, there's a narration which says that the birth of Imam al-Hadi is in Rajab, there is another narration which says that the birth of Imam al-Hadi is during the holy month of Dhul Hijjah. Of course, the month of Dhul Hijjah has many important events. One was the event which we all celebrated yesterday, the Eid al-Adha, and the completion and the conclusion of the Hajj for anyone who has gone to the Hajj. The day of the Eid is a day of the sacrifice, and it is the day after Arafat. There are other events which we will be celebrating in the coming week. One is the greatest of all of the a'yad. Which Eid is that? Eid al-Ghadir. Eid al-Ghadir is Eidullah al-Akbar, the greatest of all of the Eids, and it is the day we celebrate where Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib was appointed as the wasi after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And there is another day, the day of Mubahala, the 24th of Dhul Hijjah. So now, my dear brothers and sisters, someone might ask, a lot of you Shi'as, you followers of the Ahlul Bayt, you celebrate a lot of these days that focus on your Imams, that focus on the Ahlul Bayt. The day of Ghadir, the day of Mubahala, the births of the Imams, the martyrdoms of the Imams. Why so much obsession with the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt? Why so much obsession with the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi? Here, before we go and begin talking a little bit in detail about the life of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, a few days ago, you had millions of Muslims celebrating and attending the Hajj. And the Hajj, my dear brothers and sisters, if any of you have gone to perform the Hajj, or if any of you have gone to perform Umrah, the Kaaba, the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, the standing in Mina, a lot of the actions in the Hajj that the pilgrims perform during the Hajj, they are following in the footsteps of 3 individuals. Who are these 3 individuals? Ibrahim, Ismail, and Hajar. You see, this whole Hajj, the Hajj which is wajib, it's obligatory upon all Muslims. Allah says in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. Anyone who's capable, they have to go and perform the Hajj. This is an act of worship. This is an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, when we look at the Hajj, we see that the Hajj revolves around the family of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. In fact, Ibrahim alayhi salam, you see that when he first was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take Hajar and the newborn Ismail, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted Ibrahim alayhi salam, after he becomes an old man, Allah grants him a son. Then Allah tells him, "O Ibrahim, go and take Hajar and take Ismail, the newborn baby, and place them in the land of Mecca." Now the land of Mecca at that time, it didn't have the skyscrapers, it didn't have the Starbucks that you see right now, the McDonald's, and all of these restaurants that people get excited for. No, it didn't have any of the stuff. At that time, it didn't even have the Kaaba. It didn't even have the well of Zamzam. There was nothing. He comes and he places Hajar and Ismail, he places them in this land, and then he does a dua. رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ. Oh Allah, I have placed my dhurriya, my progeny, here, عند بيتك المحرم, in this place. Why? رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ. I placed my family in a land that does not have trees, that does not have anything, for one purpose. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ, so that they can uphold prayer. This is the most important goal and objective for Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ, and then he says, فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. And here's where the connection is with why we are celebrating Imam al-Hadi and the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Why? Ibrahim alayhi salam, he leaves his family in a land that has no water, no life, nothing is there. He says, فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. Oh Allah, I want the hearts of the people to be attracted to my progeny. This is one dua. I want my progeny to attract the hearts of people. Second, وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. Second dua is, oh Allah, give them food, give them blessings so that they could thank you. Ibrahim alayhi salam, if it was any of us, if I were to go and drop off my family in a desert, I would say, oh Allah, send them food, and then I would say, let people love them. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, his dua was, oh Allah, I want the hearts of people to be attracted to my family and children, and then warzuqhum min al-thamarat. Because Ibrahim knows, Ibrahim has faith in Allah, that Allah is, if He is giving you life, Allah is not going to leave you hungry. Allah is not going to make you die out of hunger and thirst. As long as you're destined to live, your rizq will come. But Ibrahim is on a mission. He's on a task. What's his mission? His mission is tawheed. His mission is to spread monotheism, to spread the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how can you spread the word of God? How can you spread the word of Islam? Today we are living in a predominantly non-Muslim country. Today every single one of us, the young and the old and the women and the children and whoever it may be, we all have a duty and responsibility to show the world the reality of the religion of Islam. How do we show them? How do we do da'wah? How do we call people to the religion of Islam? We do it through the ways of the prophets. We do it through the ways of the Anbiya and the Rusul and the Imams. How? By being an attractive person. No, not going and putting on makeup and being attractive. Being attractive in your akhlaq. Being attractive in your manners. Being attractive in your demeanor. This is how you attract people to you. This is how you gravitate people to you, and everyone will want to see what you're saying. Everyone will want to see what you have to offer. And this is what Ibrahim says. رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. I want the hearts of the people to be attracted to my progeny, to be attracted to my children. Ibrahim alayhi salam knows that if you want to carry on the task of tawheed, of monotheism, inviting people to God, you have to do it through kindness. You have to do it through good akhlaq. You have to do it through good manners. This is one lesson We learn from Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And of course, who is the progeny of Ibrahim? Rasulullah is the progeny of Ibrahim. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali is the progeny of Ibrahim. Imam al-Hussein is the progeny of Ibrahim. This is why when you are coming to celebrate the birth of Imam al-Hadi, or in a couple weeks when you gather to cry for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, you are answering the dua of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Because Allah, he said, "Oh Allah, make the hearts of the people be attracted to my family." Why is it that when we hear the story of Imam al-Hussein, we begin to cry? Why? Because our hearts are attracted to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And this is a very important lesson that we learn from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Why are we attracted to the Ahlul Bayt? This is the dua of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Second, my dear brothers and sisters, there's another connection with Ibrahim alayhi salam. Today, why is it that the whole world goes and they do tawaf around the Kaaba and the Hajj revolves around the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam? You think there's mosques or places of worship or temples, probably more was spent on them. There are some mosques where they spend billions of dollars. They spend millions of dollars just to make it look nice, just to make it look glamorous. But then you go inside and you see it's empty. You go inside and you see it's void of worship. I'm not only talking about mosques. Right now you go to Europe. Right now you go to certain countries in the world and you find churches. You go and you find synagogues that are empty. Empty. There's no one. In fact, you go and you see some churches, they've been converted into a dance hall or a club where people gather, people just hang out. It's become a restaurant. Maybe money was invested in it, but why isn't it still remembered? Why are some places remembered and other places not remembered? One of the most important reasons is in the dua of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim, when he was building the Kaaba along with his son Ismail, he made a dua. Allah says in the Quran, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. When he was building, when he was carrying one block after another, everything that he was doing, one brick after the other, every action that he was doing it for who? For people to say, MashaAllah, Ibrahim is doing a good job? For people to come and praise him? No. Ibrahim alayhi salam, everything that he did was for who? It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a lesson for us, my dear brothers and sisters. If you want to remain, if you want whatever you do in this world to remain after we leave this life and our bodies become dust, and nothing is remaining from them, but we want that which we did to remain, we have to do it fi sabilillah. We have to do it for the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's for God, it will remain. And this is why, my dear brothers and sisters, today people say, why do you remember the Ahlul Bayt so much? Why do you focus on Imam al-Hussein? Over 1,300 years have passed and you still cry for Imam al-Hussein. Why do you still remember the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam? We remember them because everything that they did was fi sabilillah. There were others during the time of the Ahlul Bayt, Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbas. These two dynasties, they lived during the same time as the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, and they oppressed the Ahlul Bayt. They used to harass and kill and abuse the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Bani Umayyah, they did not build masjids. No, Bani Umayyah did build masjids. In fact, Bani Umayyah, they took Islam all the way to Spain. They spread Islam all the way to Spain. Today you go to Spain, you see the mosques that were built by Bani Umayyah. Today they've become into churches again, or they've become into museums, or they're just halls. They built Bani al-Abbas. They took Islam all the way to India. But why aren't people remembering Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi? Why don't people sit and year after year remember Muawiyah and remember these individuals? Here's the main point. The main point is that there were individuals, the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, what they did was for God, and that will remain. And when you do something that is for power or for dunya or for anything else, this will go the moment you leave. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi alayhi salam. Imam al-Hadi, he is the 10th Imam of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam lived in a very difficult environment, a very difficult time. He was born in Medina, but then there was a leader, there was a Khalifa. They call him Muhyi Sunnah, the reviver of the Sunnah, Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi. This man was the embodiment of a Nasibi. What is a Nasibi? A Nasibi is a person who has hatred for the Ahlul Bayt, and they believe that they get closer to God by despising and showing the hate to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. This was the cruel man that Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam encountered. Of course, Imam al-Hadi encountered several of the Khulafa, but during the time of Al-Mutawakkil, he summoned Imam al-Hadi along with his son Imam al-Hasan al-Askari to go from Medina all the way to Samarra. He sends him all the way to Samarra to live in a garrison town. Samarra was an askar. This is why they called the Imams al-Hadi and Imam al-Askari al-Imamain al-Askariyain. Askar doesn't mean that they were generals, they were in the army. No, they were just living in a camp, in a big prison. In a big prison where everyone around them is working in the military of the government at the time. Of course, Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, when he was in Medina, the Khalifa al-Mu'tasim al-Abbasi, he poisoned his father, Imam al-Jawad. Imam al-Jawad was the youngest of the Imams to die, to be poisoned at the young age of 25. And Imam al-Hadi, he himself, he was very young. He was around 8 years old when he becomes an Imam. So Al-Mu'tasim al-Abbasi, he says, he's a kid, the son of Al-Jawad, Ibn al-Jawad. He's a kid. I'm going to send scholars. I'm going to send individuals that are going to brainwash him. They're going to talk to him in a way, and he is from the descendants of Rasulullah. So these scholars are going to talk to him in a way where he's not going to be against us, where he's not going to challenge us. So he sends the top scholar of the time, a man by the name of Al-Junaidi. He sends him to go every day. He has classes, sessions with Imam Ali al-Hadi. And Imam al-Hadi is 8, 9 years old. So Al-Junaidi, every day he goes in and he sees the Imam. After a while, Al-Mu'tasim al-Abbasi, he tells him, he writes a letter to Al-Junaidi. He tells him, how is your student? Al-Junaidi tells him, who's my student? He tells him, the student that I sent you to teach, Ali al-Hadi. Junaidi, he replies, he tells him, Ali al-Hadi is not my student, he's my teacher. He's my teacher. I go to him and I learn from him every day. And this man, Al-Junaidi, he became a Shi'i, and he became one of the top followers and students of Imam Ali al-Hadi alayhi salam. And this shows us that the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they were the top in knowledge. Today, if someone asks you, why do you make such a big deal? Why do you make such a big fuss? Why do you want to follow Ali ibn Abi Talib? There were many Sahaba. Why Imam al-Hasan and no one else? Why Imam al-Hussein and no one else? Why Zayn al-Abidin and no one else? The simple answer is that the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, they are the most knowledgeable on earth during their time. No one is more knowledgeable than the Imam of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. During the time of Rasulullah, Rasulullah was the most knowledgeable. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ana Madinatul Ilm wa Aliyun Babuha. And then the knowledge passes down. So it doesn't matter what age the Imam is. Imam al-Hadi is 8 years old. Imam al-Jawad, 7 years old. Imam al-Hujjah, 5 years old, and he becomes an Imam. Some people, they say, how could that be? The answer is very simple. Doesn't Allah tell us in the Quran how Isa alayhi salam, Jesus was an Imam when he was a newborn baby? فَحَمَلَتْهُ فَانْتَبَذَتْ بِهِ مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا. And then she comes to him. She comes, قالوا يا مريم كيف نكلم من كان في المهد صبيا قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا. He's a newborn baby and he's speaking. So is this a strange concept for us? No. The Quran makes it clear that if God chose someone, then Allah will give this person the ilm from God. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. There's two types of knowledge. There's one, you go to George Mason University and you study. And then there's another one where you go to the University of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires that knowledge upon you. And this is the difference between the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, Rasulullah, and all of the others. They have آتَيْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. Allah gave them the knowledge. And Imam Ali al-Hadi, Allah gave him the knowledge. That's what made him different. That's why Junaidi, he goes and he seeks knowledge with Imam al-Hadi. Now, Imam al-Hadi lived during 5 of the Abbasi Khulafa. Al-Mu'tasim, who poisoned Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. And then Al-Wathiq. And then Mutawakkil, who ruled the longest. And Mutawakkil was known to be a Nasibi. I mentioned this, and I will give an example. He summoned the Imam to leave Medina and come and live all the way in Samarra as a prisoner. And then you have Al-Muntasir, and then Al-Mu'taz, who poisons Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. Now Mutawakkil, see, there were several periods of time where there was heavy attack and assault on the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt. And the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt didn't have that much freedom. One was Muawiyah, and then Yazid, and then during the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and then it became a little bit less, where Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq, they start going out in public, in the masjid, they start educating people. And then during the time of Imam al-Rida, he's sitting as the crown prince, he has freedom to teach and educate people. And then after Imam al-Rida, it became much more difficult once again. And Mutawakkil, it was during his era that you have several of the scholars, several of Ibn Hanbal, Bukhari, Muslim, all of them, they were living during the era of Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi. And Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he had this deep-rooted hatred for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So you could imagine his policies of hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt, they're reflected in these books that are being written during that time. And that's why you see the fada'il and the merits of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they're not mentioned in these books. Why not? Even though Rasulullah every day he used to mention the Ahlul Bayt. Because they're living in a time where the ruler has hatred for Ali ibn Abi Talib and the children of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You know, Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he destroyed the grave of Imam al-Hussein 4 times. 4 times he destroyed the dome of Imam al-Hussein. He would hear people are visiting, and that was the time they started cutting off the hands and the legs of the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he used to sit, he calls himself the Khalifa, he used to make fun of Imam Ali. He had a transgender cross-dresser who was a drag queen who was with him. You know, right now we're hearing about transgenders and all that. This is nothing new. The Khulafa, they used to have them sitting right next to them. So Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he had this cross-dresser who was with him in his in his entourage. He was a bald man, and he used to put a pillow under his outfit, and he used to walk around, and Al-Mutawakkil Al-Abbasi, he used to say, this is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He used to say, قَدْ أَقْبَلَ الْأَصْلَعِ الْبَدِينَ خَلِيفَةَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. He used to try to come and tell people, this is Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is Al-Mutawakkil Al-Abbasi. Imagine the hatred that he has for the Ahlul Bayt. Al-Mutawakkil, he has a teacher. He used to teach his two sons. This teacher is a known scholar by the name of Ibn Sikit. Some of you have probably heard of his name. Ibn Sikit, he was a known scholar, Shi'i scholar. He used to teach the sons of Al-Mutawakkil. Of course, Al-Mutawakkil at first didn't know he was Shi'i, so he wanted to test him. He tells him, come here, Ibn Sikit, these two sons of mine, are they better in your eyes or Hassan and Hussein? He used to compare his own brat children with Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein. So, Ibn Sikit here, you know, sometimes you reach a point in your life where you have to say the word of the truth. That's it. Even if this means that your life is on the line. Ibn Sikit, he tells him, Qambar, the servant of Ali ibn Abi Talib, his sandals are better than your sons. So, that's it. He said the word. Ibn Sikit was tortured and killed. He brought out his tongue from the back of his neck. This is how he killed him. But he became known as a shaheed for the word of the truth. So this is an example to show you the challenges that the Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam had. But despite all of that, Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, while he was living under house arrest and he was imprisoned, he was able to educate people. Some of the students, they used to come and he used to write letters. They used to write letters, and the Imam alayhi salam, he used to do tawqi'. And this system of writing letters, this was preparing the Imams for Imam al-Mahdi. During the ghaibah of Imam al-Mahdi, the Imams, Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Hadi, Imam al-Hasan al-Askari, they did not interact with people every day because they were in prison. They didn't have the freedom. Ahsantum. So what happened was, one or two of the wakala of the Imams, they would go see people, and then they used to come, and the Imam would answer all of the questions through writing letters. And this is why it was getting the Shia ready during the time of the ghaibah. So Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, people would ask him questions. One of them, a man, he writes a letter to the Imam alayhi salam, or he sees him in person, I'm not sure. He tells him, I want you to teach me how can I speak to one of you. You are the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt. If I come to see one of you, whether in person or I come to the grave of one of your fathers, what should I say? It's very important, because the way that we talk to the Imam, it shows our ma'rifah with the Imam. Same with dua. The Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, today you ask people, do dua, they raise their hands, Ya Allah, I want a Lamborghini, I want this and I want that. You go and you look at, for example, dua Kumail. You go and you look at dua Abu Hamza al-Thumali. You go and you look at these beautiful du'as of the Ahlul Bayt. They teach you how to speak to God, what to ask for. So it raises your ma'rifah level. You need to know how to speak to God through dua, and you need to know how to speak to the Imams through what? What is it called when you speak to the Imam? What do you read when you speak to the Imam? Ziyarah. You read ziyarah when you speak to the Imam. So right now when you read ziyarat warith, for example, when you read ziyarah yesterday on the day of Arafah, did you all recite ziyarat Arafah? This is a ziyarah from the Imam. He teaches you how to speak to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, so that you will have stronger ma'rifah. You will understand who Imam al-Hussein is when you're reading the ziyarah. So the companion, he tells Imam al-Hadi, teach me how to speak with you. How, when I go visit one of the graves, what should I say? So the Imam alayhi salam, he teaches him one of the most important and longest ziyaras that we have. What is it called? Ziyarah Jami' al-Kabira. Ziyarah al-Jami' al-Kabira. This is a ziyarah from Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. He tells him, teach me a ziyarah that is kafiyah, that is shafiyah, that is sufficient, that is well-rounded, that teaches me who the Imam is. Today, if you want to know who your Imam is, go and study Ziyarah Jami'ah. You study Ziyarah Jami'ah, you will know the merits of the Imam. And then the Imam alayhi salam, the companion, he tells him, علمني قولا بليغا كاملا أقوله إذا زرت أحد منكم. Teach me a qawl that is baligh, that is eloquent, that is complete. I say it when I go and I visit one of you. So the Imam, he tells him, you do ghusl. The first thing you do is you do ghusl. And this is the beauty of Islam. Teaches you to do ghusl when you want to go visit the Imam, or you want to, also if you want to, on a day of ibadah, like the day of Arafah, there was ghusl. On Friday, when you want to come and pray to the masjid, you want to come in the masjid, you do ghusl. And imagine, this is in a society 1400 years ago, where there was lack of access to water. Islam says, no, you do ghusl. You have to be clean. An-nadafatu min al-iman. He tells him, do ghusl. You wash yourself, and then you say the shahadatayn, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and then you begin walking to the grave. So keep this in mind when you're walking to Karbala, when you're walking to Najaf, when you're walking to Kadhimiyah. You do the ghusl. You say the shahada, and then he says you say 30 times Allahu Akbar, and then you say another 30 times Allahu Akbar, and then you say 40 times Allahu Akbar. So now you have done the shahada and the ghusl. Why? The shahada and the takbir. Why? So that no one comes and accuses you of worshipping the Imam. So that no one comes and says, look at the Shi'as, they're worshipping the Imam. You glorify Allahu Akbar. God is greater. God is greater. God is greater. 100 times. And then he says, you begin, and the Imam begins, Assalamu alaykum ya ahla bayt al-nubuwwah wa mawdi' al-risalah wa mukhtalaf al-malaikah wa ma'dan al-wahy wa khuzan al-ilm wa muntaha al-hilm wa usul al-karam wa qadat al-umam. And I think Sheikh Mustafa has probably done a sharh of Ziyarat Jami'ah for you guys, right? Okay, mashallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, he teaches this man a ziyarah. I will conclude with this last story, which shows you the Imam alayhi salam and what he had to endure, the difficulties and the challenges. But the Imam, even despite that difficult time that he was experiencing, the Imam alayhi salam, he managed to give a maw'adha. One day in the middle of the night, al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi was getting drunk. He's getting drunk, he's drinking. He goes and he tells his guard, bring me Ali al-Hadi. In the middle of the night. Imagine the insult to the Imam. Imam al-Hadi, the guards, they come and they see the Imam is praying. He's praying in his house. They come and they take him. They say the Khalifa wants to see you in the middle of the night. They call him, and the Imam alayhi salam, he enters on al-Mutawakkil. Mutawakkil is having a lavish party, and he's drinking, and he has dancers and poets and all of these. So al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he tells the Imam, he tells him, Ya Ali al-Hadi, I want you to sing for me. He's drunk. He tells him, I want you to sing for me. The Imam alayhi salam, before he tells him, I want you to sing for me, he's holding the alcohol, the khamr. He's holding it in his hand and he offers it to the Imam. And that is the biggest insult to a righteous person. When they're offered what he offered the Imam. The Imam alayhi salam, he says, Wallah ma khalata dami wa lahmi. Wallah, this has never been mixed with my blood and with my flesh. And then he tells him, okay, then sing for us. And the Imam tells him, I'm not a singer. He tells him, you have to recite something for us. So the Imam alayhi salam recited these words of poetry. But these words of poetry, When the Imam alayhi salam recited them, they changed the majlis from a party to a aza. The Mutawakkil was partying, he was laughing. When the Imam finished, he has the tears flowing down his face. What does the Imam say? The Imam, he begins to say, باتوا على قلل الأجبال تحرسهم غلب الرجال فلم تنفعهم القلل واستنزلوا بعد عز عن معاقلهم وأودعوا حفرا يا بئس ما نزلوا ناداهم صارخ من بعد ما قبروا أين الأسرة والتيجان والحلل أين الوجوه التي كانت منعمة من دونها تضرب الأستار والكلل فأفصح القبر عنهم حين سألهم تلك الوجوه عليها الدود يقتتل قد طالما أكلوا دهرا وما شربوا فأصبحوا بعد طول الأكل قد أكلوا. The Imam alayhi salam, I will just translate it really quick and we will conclude. He says, he describes those who are wealthy, those who are living in the palaces. باتوا على قلل الأجبال تحرسهم غلب الرجال. They sleep on the hills, on the top of the hills, and they're protected by the guards. No one could come and reach the Khalifa. No one could come and reach the rich person. Today, can you come and sit with a multi-billionaire? No. They have their own entourage, they have their own guards, they have their own system, their own planes, their own cars, everything. And then he says, but then there will come a time, they come from this high palace, وَاسْتُنْزِلُوا بَعْدَ عِزٍّ مِنْ مَعَاقِلِهِمْ وَأُودِعُوا حُفَرًا يَا بِئْسَ مَا نَزَلُوا. But then they will be carried from their palace and placed in a hole in the ground, in a grave in the ground. When they're placed in the ground, ناداهم صارخ من بعد ما قبروا أين الأسرة والتيجان والحلل. Then someone will call them, where's the jewelry, where's the rubies, where's all the decoration that you had on? أين الوجوه التي كانت منعمة من دونها تضرب الأستار والكلل. Where are these faces that others were not even allowed to look at? People were not allowed to look at. They used to put a partition between them and the others. And then the Imam says, the grave will answer. The grave, you look at a dead person in the grave, if you see what happens to the corpse in the grave, فَأَفْصَحَ الْقَبْرُ عَنْهُمْ حِينَ سَأَلَهُمْ. The qabr becomes fasih, it becomes very eloquent in answering you. What is it? تِلْكَ الْوُجُوهِ عَلَيْهَا الدُّودِ يَقْتَتِلُ. The worms are walking on these cheeks. These very cheeks that people were not allowed to see. They used all of the top creams. Now the worms are walking on them. قَدْ طَالَمَا أَكَلُوا دَهْرًا وَقَدْ شَرِبُوا فَأَصْبَحُوا بَعْدَ طُولِ الْأَكْلِ قَدْ أُكِلُوا. Their whole life they were eating. Now after a life of eating, now what? Now they're being eaten. When the Imam said this, Mutawakkil's beard became wet from his tears. And this shows you the maw'idha of the Imam alayhi salam. My dear brothers and sisters, we congratulate you all on these auspicious occasions, on the birth of Imam al-Hadi, on Eid al-Adha, on Eid al-Ghadir, Eid al-Mubahala. These are all events that strengthen our faith and show us who are our real teachers, who are our real guides that we have to follow and we have to look at as role models. And my dear brothers and sisters, we live in a time where we are in need of teachers. We are in need of real role models to teach us and show us the way. And the best of role models are the prophets and the imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I thank you all for listening to me. May Allah bless you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.